Good morning, Council Chambers. This is a regularly scheduled City Council Committee of the Whole. I will call this meeting to order. Today's date is Tuesday, December 21st, 2021. The time is 9 a.m. Our City Administrator is absent today, so we'll muddle through this schedule of events, and we have quite agenda here. We should be able to get through it without much of an issue. So the first item on the agenda is under Finance, a request for purchase of new flooring at the Virginia Public Library Children's Room and West Main floor. In the packet, you have a series of quotes on a state contract bid from Hiller and Associates, which is out of our area commercial flooring company. Also, just to make a note in your packet, also is the council minutes from 2019, November 5th, I believe, of 2019, that indicates that we had a sale of the property up at White Cedar Drive to the Independent School District number 706. And at that time, on November 5th of 2019, the proceeds were to be spent in a manner to benefit the city. And on that day, which is a motion was made by Councillor Johnson, supported by Councillor Baraboo, to give to the library and the playgrounds the money and the proceeds from this particular sale of the school, FYI. So yeah, that's in your packet as well. And so I'm looking for some discussion with respect to this. Our library director is not here. If you look at the highlighted portions of your packet, it does indicate that this is under the state contract bid. So I open this up for discussion. Okay, I'll start. Okay, Councillor Johnson.
I will move to approve the purchase of the flooring for the library.
Councillor Johnson moves to approve the purchase of the floor for the library. Is there support?
I'll support.
Support by Councillor Freely. Further discussion? I have discussion first is that, you know, I know that we have a state contract bid. I don't know if we went out for bids in other capacities outside of the state contract. But for me, it's always been, and I think for all of us, is that whenever we can purchase local, we should take a look at those options, even though there may not be on the contract bid for the state of Minnesota, at least for something for us to consider. I don't know if that was done or not, but looking at the costs associated with that from a commercial flooring company, I don't think it's Rochester, Minnesota. I find that it needs to be vetted out and some more discussion as well. I was going to ask our library director about that. She's not here. I was going to ask our city administrator, and she's absent today for personal reasons. So that being said, we'll go to Councillor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. That was exactly my question, is have we explored any local vendors for this? I'm in full support of moving forward with the flooring because they need it, and I appreciate Councillor Johnson allocating that back a couple years ago when we sold the property to the school. But if we could get that additional information, I'd rather have that and maybe understand how the bid tabulation or how the bid was conducted. Or Sherry?
Pam, do you have some more information? And then we'll move to Sherry to answer, and then we'll go to Councillor Bondage.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. The only thing I'm aware of is when I asked for the second quote, because we have to have two quotes, I was told that this was on the bid list, so we didn't need to have another quote. So I don't believe they did.
So on the bid list on the state contract?
Correct.
Yes, okay, thank you. Sherry?
I believe that Jody did check with the local area vendors, but I'm going to text Britt right now, and I'll let you know in about 5 minutes.
Okay, would you please? Thank you. Councillor Bondage.
Thank you. And I think I would echo that. I think it's great they're getting the flooring, but I would also be interested to see that we tried to keep it as local as possible. Thank you.
Yeah, and I know at times we usually, you know, we buy products from outside the area through even in other states based upon the availability. So just as a matter of record, just to have that information for us. So if any of us get any questions, which I did get one question about this already, you know, why that is the case. And I said it's because it's a state contract bid. I'm sure that we use the proper process moving forward like we always do. But in order to, answer the question to those two individuals that called me, that I would just like to know, and, if there was other vendors considered, and thank you for the information, Pam, about the fact that we don't have that. We didn't need to do that. And so, then with the idea, Sherry, that you had other considerations of other vendors, but we don't have that information. So we'll wait just a minute or so if you can provide any information with respect to this particular issue. There is a motion on the floor in support. I think we all support the fact that the library is in woefully need of new carpeting, but it's just a process with respect to the vendor that was selected, that's all. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. One more point. Do we have a list of approved local vendors for state-awarded bid contracts? I don't know, Brian, do we have that as a matter of record of when we go out, like what local vendors are state, they have to go through the application process. We went through this with Range Office where they weren't, so we walked them through that process. Is that something we have information on what our local area vendors, which ones of those vendors are state?
Under the state contract, there's supposed to be, and I believe that there is, a list on the state website about whose vendors are authorized under the state bidding contract for a variety of things. And by asking and calling and notifying them, I'm sure we've done that. I hope that we have, to determine who is on the state bid. And so if that's the state bid contract, most of the time these vendors don't deviate from the state bid because normally it's lower. But of course, we as a council and other public entities can deviate from that under exigent circumstances in favor of a local vendor, as long as it's in the close proximity with respect to the bid. We've done that before.
So that would lead me to, I don't mean to
No, please.
labor this, but that would lead me to, if there is a local vendor that is not, has not gone through the state award vetting process, that maybe we look into that moving down the line we've got the Public Safety Center coming up, we've got probably other projects coming up. I'm not even sure who did the carpet here in the City Hall when we had to do that, but I guess I'd be curious as to how we'd conduct that process, and if we do have local vendors that would be able to, that maybe we approach them as to how to apply for state award contracts. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, very good, thank you. Sherry, do you have any other additional information? Okay, nothing yet. Councilor Johnson?
I think, so I work for the state now, so I get a little insight into how that red tape works. To be a vendor for the state is a very simple process. One of the local people just did it so I could buy product wholesale from them. The other part of that is this bid thing, and I'm sure you know this, I'm just kind of processing it out loud for myself, is that while you might be a local vendor, you might not be able to meet what the state bid is because of the process needed to get it. So I'm guessing these Hiller people do a lot of commercial carpeting, so they can bid very low. That's why they're on the state bid, as opposed to the folks on North Side who wouldn't get the same discount. So I'm confident that the library director did her due diligence with this. That's why I made the motion right away. I'm not worried about it at all. But I think it's also important to note that there are times when we go to our local people. I've had this discussion with a couple of our department heads, and the local people say, go buy it online. I can't get it for you at a lesser price, and it's significant. So I'm comfortable moving forward with this for that reason. I can't imagine that our staff wouldn't follow that information, and maybe the step missing is that they just need to put a note in here, but yes, this is what we did to get to this particular quote. So And again, the carpet, the way, this is gonna be carpet squares, which is great, because then when something gets wrecked, they'll be removed and replaced, and that's all, looks like that's all built in, the extra carpet squares laying around. Just need to make sure they stay where we can find them and they don't get buried under boxes or something. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Johnson. You know, I too have had lots of experience in the state bid process, particularly down the metro area, and we're not required by law, nor is any other community required by law, to use the state bid to automatically purchase. We can use any contract we want, and so whether they're on the state bid or not, if they can give us a quote that is competitive, that's fine. And in most cases, you know, they can't on the local bid under big contracts, but at least we should know. And even if we're not required to get two quotes, I think in the future, we should at least have another quote just for the record to show that. And I'm not wanting to, as everybody else is, you know, to delay this at all, because it's woefully needed. We have money allocated for that. But I'm just saying that in the future, I think we need to take a look at that, maybe get a second quote, whether we need it or not. So it has been moved and supported to approve the request to the purchase of new flooring at the Virginia Public Library Children's Room and the west main floor. Is there any further discussion? Sherry?
I just received feedback from Jody, the library director. She said we did not go out to local vendors. The Hiller works with libraries and has equipment that is able to lift the stacks, the shelving, for an easier installation. So that's what I got back.
Okay, it's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Paulson.
Thank you. Mayor, based on that information, I won't be able to support this motion.
Okay, very good, thank you. It has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Beyondich.
One more, thank you. Do any of our local vendors have that capability that we know of?
Well, it's a commercial flooring process. We have local vendors that do commercial flooring. I think we did have some local vendors doing some of the flooring here at City Hall. So it's just a matter of getting the second quote or second bid or whatever the case may be. In this particular case, that didn't occur, using recommendations from probably other libraries or whatever the vetting process was to choose this particular vendor because of their experience with libraries. So, as indicated by our finance director, no other bids or quotes or any other options were solicited at this time.
I also feel that we should stick to the process and check to see if we have local vendors that can achieve the same result.
Okay, thank you. So it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Bearable?
Yeah, one of the issues here now is the fact if we refuse this bid for some reason, and I don't see a good reason to, anybody has access now to the bid process that came in from Hiller, because it's public now. So how do we get around that? They can come in and underbid and then charge off different prices and because this they need to have and that they have to have. They can do cost overruns, and I don't like the process. We got one good bid now that meets the state bid, so because of anybody competition, knowing the bid that they've sent in, they could undercut them. I don't like that process. We need to clean up the process in the next round of something that we do. So I will support this just because I don't like the way it's going.
Yeah, I think the goal and objective here is to ensure that we do our due diligence in all areas of our purchasing properties or vending or contracts, or whatever the case may be. I think that we've already been moved. It's already moved and supported to move forward with this. The bid is already out, as you indicated, Councilor Bearable. It's pretty. You can't put the rabbit back in the hat. So, I mean, you know, we're at a position where we have to make a decision one way or the other, but we can't now go solicit other vendors in order to see if we can undercut or get a better price, because it's already out there. The bids have already been opened up. So we know that this is the bid, and your concern is well-founded, But in the future, I think we have to determine, under what circumstances this is the case. And so we'll be moving forward. So it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? First, Councilor Paulson, and then over to Councilor Beyondich. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, this is about the process that happened prior to this coming to the council, and it's concerning to me that we don't follow a consistent process. And I know 3 vendors right off the top of my head that are commercial, that probably would have been able to at least put a quote together. And the fact that we did not follow a specific process, maybe we need a refresher course on state bid versus local and what we can accept. But I feel like we, as a council, went through this with the Iron Trail Motors Event Center in choosing vendors for furniture, as well as all of the other things that the design committee had to go through. I understand once it's out. But if we were following a process to begin with, and that process is followed by this council as well as city administrative or city staff, I don't think we would be in this position. So again, I'm not going to be able to support this.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Paulson. Councilor Beyondich.
you. And I think that's my point as well. It's not that I don't want it to be done, but we always say we're going to change the process next time. And next time comes around and it's done and we can't put the rabbit back in the hole again. So unless we start following the process, which apparently we don't learn the lesson, we're never going to fix it. So as much as I would hate to, I can't support it either. We have a process, we need to follow it every time, not pick and choose when we want to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think that we have really followed the process in this particular case because the authority of our staff is to make a decision based on the state bid. And we're not required by law, not required to go outside get another quote. But I think it would be prudent for us to take a look at that process and at a policy. And maybe even though we aren't required to do so, maybe it would be prudent for us under these circumstances to get a second quote just to see where we're at. So Councilor Johnson, then back over to Councilor Baraboo. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you. I look at this as these people are library carpet installers. They're not City Hall carpet installers. They're not Target carpet installers. They're library carpet installers. There is $12,150 for lifting the book stacks. So to me, that means they know what they're doing to do the library. I think I have to agree that our staff follow the process when it comes to the specific job. We need library carpet installed in our library. For us to take and move the books and move the shelves, have them install the carpet, and put everything back is going to cost more than $12,000 if we have our staff do it. I can't imagine any of our local vendors have the ability or the staff to do that in a timely manner as well. I'm guessing we would have to be the ones that do it. So I think when it comes to this particular instance with carpet installation, the people who have installed the carpet in this building, in Britt's office when it was redone, in the basement when it was redone, is one person. And he contracts with Range Carpet to do what he does. He's an independent contractor through them. So I think, again, I think that if in the future, if they need to alleviate this other than the folks that can't be here, is in the packet saying this is the process and why we chose them would be helpful. But of course, we can't anticipate when folks are going to be absent for multiple of reasons. So I will still stay by my motion and will be supporting the installation by this company.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. I do, we know that, how do we know if these other vendors aren't qualified? How do we know these other vendors don't have the capability of raising the stacks? And we don't know that. We're assuming that they don't. We're assuming that this is the only contractor that has the professional expertise to do that. And if their expertise is just libraries, do they do other things? I don't know. But the issue is the second quote, just to get a, I think it's prudent for us to do that. Maybe it's not required to do so, but I think we're discussing taking a look at that in the future. I know the issue on the floor, which is a motion and a second to approve this particular contract, but I think it's worth discussion and vetting out upon, how we arrived at that. Not that our staff did anything wrong, because they followed a process that they've followed before, but this is a significant amount of money, and a lot of times the process on the state bid may be more local than it is now. And so, I think we all have talked about shopping local whenever possible. If there wasn't a local, we get a quote from a local and that wasn't possible, if they couldn't meet the quote, they couldn't do the work, whatever, then you go with this process. So I guess I think that's what we're discussing right now. But the motion on the floor in support is to approve this carpet vendor for the library. Is there any other discussion? Councilor Baraboo.
Just one more point here. Brian, to go out, to have to get more than one quote, you can go out for, $100,000 without, by state law, no, without getting more than one quote. Is that not correct? He raised it way up from what it used to be.
Yeah, it used to be, I believe it used to be 25,000, and I think it did go up into the neighborhood of about 100,000 now.
Yeah, so this is under that, correct? From what I see. So there's another point. We wouldn't have to go out for another quote on this. And since they do this as work, and I don't know either if that's part of their primary work, but it sounds like they have the equipment. So otherwise, somebody that may bid on this may have to go out and rent that equipment if they don't have it. We don't know that at this point, but this is a legal bid. So I just have a real problem, and that's part of my issue is the problem that if you let a bid out and it becomes public, and we have the right to refuse, there's no question about that. But then you go out and get other bids. They've seen that first bid that we have looked at already and put out for public notice. Anybody can come in and underbid that bid, and I have a problem with that.
And I don't think we're talking about that. There's a motion on the floor to approve this bid, and we're going to be voting on that particular thing. We're not going to put the rabbit back in the hole, or whatever the analogy is. The fact is that we're discussing, what potentially could be we do in the future. And I think this discussion is prudent to this particular case, because even though we're not required to get a quote, wouldn't it be prudent for us to at least get a comparison, even though we're not required to do so? I think that's where we're discussing a little bit here. But we're not discussing to now go out for bids again in order to try to undercut this contract. That's not what discussion is about. Although it is a concern that you have, and it's not something that the road that we're going down. So it has been moved and supported to approve the contract and award it as recommended by the Virginia Public Library Children's Room and our staff. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. I'm sorry, you had some more discussion?
I did.
Okay,
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Councilor Beyondich.
I just would like to point out, as having a small business in this community, how important it is for the city to support any business we have in our town. Doesn't mean we have to take the bid, but we need to offer it. Those are the people paying the taxes. They employ the people that live here. And it has nothing to do with the library or the flooring. It's the process. And when we exclude our very own businesses and our employees and our people, that hurts. It hurts them. So I have no problem with the carpet in the library. It's the process that was done. And I think we need to really concentrate and try to include our very own businesses right in our community. That is my point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So it has been moved and supported, and we did take a vote, and I did allow more discussion on it because I think it's prudent to do so. So once again, let's take the vote once again. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
No.
Roll call, please, Pam.
Cuffey,
Aye.
Baraboo,
Aye.
Reedley, Paulson,
No.
Beyondich, Johnson,
Aye.
Aaron's-Ellie.
A motion passes 5-2. Thank you. Okay, move to the next item on the agenda under Building and Grounds. It's item 2, discuss the police garage repair in addition bid recommendations. As you see in your packet, we have that information available. There are 2 bids, one for the base bid for the garage and the other for the secondary addition to the garage. So the questions that we have obviously is, do we want to do both? And if we do, where are we going to get the money? And we'll ask Sherry about that for the addition. And number 2, we have 2 bidders. Well, there's a $5,000 difference between the 2 bids. So first of all, I'll ask Brian, say for example, say for the sake of argument, it's $695,000 and $690,000. And we just talked about local bids versus others and whatever the case may be. So when you have these kind of bids, are you required to take the lowest bid?
In the competitive bidding scenario, where we receive sealed bids, the lowest bid is required to be taken.
Okay, thank you. So you have 2 bids, one for the base bid of the garage, which would be awarded to one vendor. And then you have the bid for the base bid and the addition, which would be awarded to the other vendor. So we're here for discuss the police garage repair and bid recommendation. We don't have to make a motion to move forward with this, but we do need to discuss it to figure out what avenue we want to go through. So I open this up for discussion for the rest of the council. Councilor Freely.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, all right, thank you. So Councilor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I think that we need to move forward with this. The police, we've been literally burning up money for the last year and a half now since the fire. And I think that this is the one opportunity we're going to have to expand that garage and make it more usable in the future once the police department has moved to the new building. I think that it's time that we do this. I think that, you know, we can be creative with where we get the money. I've been asking questions about, we still have some COVID money left over from wherever. And one of those points is we can use it for structural stuff and to expand that police garage so that they can use it to clean their cars out in warmth instead of wiping down with alcohol swabs out in the street in January. To me, that's a no-brainer for us. And in the future, to be able to store our equipment that we use here at City Hall, the city truck, in that garage. So I'm fully supportive of taking the bid plus the alternate and awarding that, and getting moving on this process of getting that garage done, knowing that in the future, the garage will be continued to utilize for city, for the benefit of the city and keeping our equipment and such safe.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Johnson. Sherry, before we go to Councilor Paulson and the rest of the council, I'd like to find out, you know, there's an additional, say, for example, if it's awarded the alternate bid of $192,000 for the garage expansion, although I support having that garage expansion, I think we all want to know where that money could come from. So that's an additional $192,000. It could be more with respect when it comes to change orders that are unanticipated. So say that it just will go with the low $192,000. Where would that money come from?
Mayor, council?
Yes.
I did have a discussion with the city administrator yesterday regarding this. And yes, under the additional CARES monies that will be passed on down to us, 1.7, we can use the money for capital investment or physical plant changes to public facilities, which this expansion of the garage would fall under. There is funds there. Also too, I think it'd be very prudent, just like Councilor Johnson said, looking forward, the wear and tear, former Public Works Director Ed Alto was in here a couple weeks ago and said the idling on your vehicles is eating up their life. So I just think we would see a savings not only in gas and the vehicle wear and tear, but also allow us to expand for future
Okay, thank you. You know, and we do know that the base bid garage, the recommendation is when that base bid, the garage to replace that garage, it would only have you only have the option to put 3 vehicles in there. We have much more than that as far as police officers do, but when the new public safety building gets built, there'll be a garage for all their vehicles parked there, along with our EMS and fire personnel. There'll be plenty of room there. But then we'll need that extra garage space for storage and other garage and vehicles that we have, that the city operates, our code official vehicle, our, you know, we'll probably have to get on an inspection vehicle coming down in the future, so those kind of things. So I'm supportive of the expansion of the building. I just, I'll wait for additional comments later. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, I have a couple questions. How much does the insurance cover? Does it cover the entire base bed, Sherry? 400
The base
The
bid.
498,000 is covered by insurance?
The first base bid, yes.
Okay, say that again, the first base bid?
The base bid. You're looking for an expansion, that's almost $200,000 more.
So what is?
Right, but
what's
I'm
the base bid?
asking.
What's the base bid?
I'd have to look.
What is it?
Lindsay's bid is 434,000.
Right.
Johnson Wilson's is 498,000. So does our insurance cover up to 498,000, which is the base bid of Johnson Wilson, which is a higher bid?
The insurance covers $407,541.89.
So we still have a discrepancy
Correct.
even at the lowest bid of, have to do the math, but we still have at least almost a $20,000 discrepancy. Okay, and I see Matt's here, so maybe Matt can help too.
Sure.
The other question, do you want to respond to that, Matt, before I go on, or?
I was just going to point out that amount that the mayor just
Okay.
read off.
So our insurance covers up to that amount. Okay, so on the $1.7 million that we have in CARES grant funding, is that something we're going to be receiving, or is that something we did not spend down in time?
It should be something we're going to receive.
Coming
And
in.
is that the deed funding we just got awarded? Or the
Awarded.
Virginia Community Foundation just got awarded?
No.
This is in addition.
Right. The surplus the state had, this is part of that surplus.
And so we've already been allocated $1.7 million.
I do not know the exact figure, but I do have the outline of what you can spend it on.
Okay, so were we ever given that information that we're going to be awarded this? We were?
A while back.
Okay. So we don't have this money yet, but it will be allocated for 2022.
Right. And I can tell you right now that it's probably prudent to expand and maybe let Matt tell you why.
Well, and after Chief Mattson was here, we understand how important it is, and I get that. I'm trying to understand the funding portion of this, as well as what the insurance covers, because realistically, then we're looking at whatever the total price is minus $407,000. Is that correct? And have we ever worked with Johnson Wilson Construction as a city in the past?
Matt, could you answer?
I don't know about the city. I have not personally, but I know Brian has, Bergstrom, the one that put the specs together. He's worked on other projects with them and said that they do good work.
Brian,
Bergstrom from SEH.
thank you.
I kind of Googled them up, and they've done the North Shore banks, the new remodels of North Shore banks, which are really beautiful. Again, I go back to the concern of local, but we are required, if we go to the full alternate, base bid plus alternate one, we are required to take the lowest bid.
That's correct. The only other option there is best value bidding, and I'm not sure we've received that we have the appropriate credentialing.
Okay, thank you for that, Brian.
And I think I did get some figures here from Pam. So at $407,541, which is the insurance coverage, we would need an additional $182,500. So that would come out of that potential, which we're anticipated receiving. It's been awarded, we just haven't received the money yet. And the initial indication is $1.7 million, and why that would change, I don't know. Would you have any reason why that would change, Sherry?
That I don't know, but.
All right, thank you. Counselor Freely?
Matt, is there any reason why we would not be able to have Lency do the base bid and that portion of the project, and then alternate addition awarded to a secondary construction company?
Yeah, technically, they were bid together as one project, and so how they actually put their bids together, I don't know, but they were bid to be included as one project, one way or the other.
And do you find it somewhat confusing as to why where there's a $70,000-ish discrepancy in the alternate bid? Because they're typically significantly closer than that. Like, would it be relative to the types of construction materials being not as quality as another, or, you know what I mean? Like, how do you come up with 70 grand less on an identical project? To kind of essentially undercut the bid. I mean, that's, and not to undercut, I don't mean to make it sound like they did that, but that's my concern, is like, if you're both doing the exact same project with the same quality materials, how can you be $70,000 less on a combined bid?
I guess I don't know how they put their bids together, but it's similar to the base bid where it's flip-flopped the other way, where one is, what, 60,000 less than the other. I don't know how they prepared their bids or what they included in their base bid versus their alternates, so I can't say. I mean, at the end of the day, they both, when you look at the end number, they're about the same, so I'm pretty confident that whether it was Lency or Johnson, whichever one, you're probably gonna get the same product in the end.
And where is Johnson from?
Duluth.
Duluth. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, so we discussed it, and yes, I think we have to move on this as soon as we can to accommodate. I know the police department has been doing this for a couple of years now, and and even beyond that, because there wasn't enough room in the garage to accommodate all the vehicles. So by extending this, it gives that opportunity, at least in the short term, until the new public safety building is built, and will be an added value to our city hall as well. And so, looking for additional information, council action or concerns, first Councilor Johnson, and then back over to Councilor Paulson. Councilor Johnson.
Mayor, I would make a motion that we award the full, the base bid and the alternative to Johnson Wilson Contractors in the amount of $690,000.
Okay, Councilor Johnson makes the motion to award the base bid and alternate combined for the police garage and addition in the amount of $690,000 to Johnson Wilson Construction. Is there support? Is there support?
Mayor, all support for further discussion.
Support by Councilor Baraboo for further discussion. Further discussion, first Councilor Paulson, and then over Councilor Baraboo. Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Matt, this might be a question for you. Do we have a scope of work in which I was trying to follow, because this has been going on for a while, the emails back and forth with Britt and Brian Bergstrom. Do we have a scope of work, and then do they have any schematics, or did we receive any schematics about what the alternate bid or what that looked like construction-wise?
Yeah, there was a bid package prepared that was sent out for, this is a public advertisement, so there was a project manual with some schematics and stuff.
It was a while ago.
It was a while ago, yeah.
Yeah, so could you maybe just give a little synopsis of what the additional bid alt, if you can?
So it's expanding the garage to meet up with about where the end of the building is now on the south side. I don't remember exactly what was included on the inside, to be honest with you, but it was an opportunity or an an ask to try and get some more room in there. So it's not knocking that wall down on the east side or anything like that. It's building inside of that and extending it to the south a ways.
Right.
That way. Whichever way, this way, yes, this way, sorry.
Okay, because when Chief Mattson was here and we were talking about the cars running and how important it is, that they got blocked off basically because of that historical wall with the mural on it, so we can't go that way. Whatever direction
Yeah, not that
way
way,
is, but
right,
yeah, we
yes.
can't go that way. So we'll have to go this way.
Yep.
And so that's the expansion that was part of that project, so that they will be able to stack more cars in there
Yep.
and
I think they
not
can
have
get,
them
they can get
running.
2 more in there if I remember
2 more?
right. I
Okay.
think so. No, it's not very big.
So, okay, so it's only 600 square feet addition.
Sounds about right.
Okay, thank you, appreciate that.
With the base bid, you had 3 cars. With the alternate bid included, there'd be 2 additional cars from a maximum of 5, even though they have more than 5 vehicles. Okay, anybody else? Counselor Freely,
So there's, what kind of demolition is being required to complete this project? Interior demolition? None.
Yeah, there'll be a little bit of work on the inside. I think the roof's got to get replaced, if I remember right. It's not an entire demo. Some of it was able to be saved, I believe, but they'll take out what they have to, obviously. And
I mean, I'm surprised by, 261,000 versus 192, even for a 600 square foot addition. I don't know. I don't know nothing about anything, but for 600 square feet of space to put 2 more cars in, worth it? I don't know. To me, it doesn't sound that it's worth it, in my opinion. That's a lot of money to put 2 cars in. It's like building a garage on your own city lot, essentially, for almost 300 grand, give or take. I don't know. That just seems like, I know we need the space, but are we willing to spend premium cash for 2 more cars to fit in there at 600 square feet? I'm troubled by that. And I guess I don't know the extent of the other construction involved with remodeling, repairing, whatever else is going on in the original garage. But an additional, whether it's $192,000 or $261,000 for a 600 square foot addition, that seems way overkill. Even me knowing nothing about construction, but I know square footage, and that's tiny.
yeah, the original garage is basically going to be restored to what it was before. I mean, give or take, there's a few minor improvements that are going to happen to it, but it'll look like it did before.
So the costs we're incurring is because we're gonna be like building it with, red brick and making it look historically appropriate, and, I can understand that, but if we're really looking for space rather than aesthetics on historical buildings, we're paying a whole lot more than we need to for the space we need, in my opinion. So that's kind of where I stand. I think the alternative bid, even though it sounds needed, it's an excessive cost for the amount of square footage that we're getting. That's how I look at it. Thank you.
thank you. And before I move to Counselor Paulson and Counselor Baraboo, for me, I agree with Counselor Freely about the costs associated with that. And what I look at is that we talked about and used the analogy that the police department is, we can't allow that to happen. Their cars are being, abused, and that's true. It's been going on for 5 years or more because we had so many more vehicles that couldn't fit in that garage. They put the old vehicles in there, which caused the fire in the first place. So the question is that how long are the police going to be using this garage? Well, we're building a new facility for them, and they'll eventually be moving over there. And so what are we going to be using this garage space for? So if we do the base bid and just replace that, there'll be enough for 3 vehicles. So what 3 vehicles will be parked in there? Are city vehicles that within City Hall, whether it's an inspection vehicle or code official vehicle or whatever the case may be, and some additional storage. That's the way that garage has been forever. And we've had more than 3 cars that to be parked forever. And we've had cars parked outside running forever. And so the question is, for that cost associated, do the police department really need to do that? Do we need to put that in there for the short term for the police officers, or do we wait? So I think that's the question. I agree, that's a lot of money to be sitting for 600 square feet. We'll go to Councilor Paulson, then back over to, we'll go to Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. Just doing the math, at Lencey's bid at $261,000 for the additional 600 square feet. That's $435 per square foot. Johnson Wilson at $192,000 divided by 600 square feet is $320 per square foot, and that is pretty high. Just after pricing my own rebuild, that's pretty high. And I hate to ask this, but is there a way we could table this until we see the specs again, until we look at what actually is the construction and what is the actual footprint in the plan? Is that something we could do?
Well, we can't table now because
No.
there's a motion of support on the floor. So depending upon how the vote goes, that could generate another motion.
Can you
depending upon-
table during a motion?
No, we have to vote on the motion on the floor. Is that correct, Brian? Or am I not accurate?
Technically, there could be an intervening motion to table, which would, if that motion succeeded, would end the discussion of the motion currently pending.
But if that was the case, we would still have to vote. Would we vote on the tabling motion, or would we vote on the motion that's on the floor?
If there was an intervening motion to table, we would vote on the tabling motion first. And if that tabling motion passed, then the primary motion would be set aside to a future specified date and time.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. So yes, you could make a tabling motion in the middle of the formal motion to award the contract, and we could, and if it's just a second, we would table it.
I'll maybe let further discussion happen, but okay.
Okay, thank you. Well, if there's a motion on the floor, it's been moved and supported. Is there, Councilor Baraboo?
Thank you. I believe Councilor Johnson was going to say the same thing I'm saying. The old garage falls under, this building is historical, okay? Number one, it's on the register for that. So you have to bring that old part back up to historical value, and that's more costly, no question about it. So whether one bidder anticipated that in the first part or anticipated it in the second part, you don't know. That's why there's differential, I believe. And that's my personal opinion on this. I have not seen a historical building that's been renovated in this town that doesn't cost more than the bids that go out. So that's my perspective from being around here a long time. Matt, can you tell me if that's not true? They may have anticipated prices going up with all this stuff going on too.
Yeah, I just don't know how they put their bids together. You could be very right, Councilor Baraboo. I don't know. We'd have to actually go back and ask the contractors and ask them to detail that out. One thing just to keep in mind, and I'm not suggesting this to deter you in any way, I want to make sure you understand that per the contract, there was 45 days in the contract to award this bid. For them to be required to accept, we're well past that 45 days. We did talk to both contractors, and they both are still more than willing to honor their bid at this point. But just bear in mind, as if we get it tabled, and again, whatever you decide is fine, but just something that might come up later on, that you may have a contractor come back, one or both, or neither, and say they might want to adjust their bid, and they would have the right to do that. So I just wanted to make sure everybody understood that.
And in addition, that we have a right to not accept any of the bids,
That's correct.
right? So we have that option.
Yep, correct.
So, okay, thank you. So it has been moved and supported to award the police garage repair base bid and addition to Johnson Wilson Construction in the amount of $690,000. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I truly don't want to do this, but I will make a tabling motion. How would I phrase it? Basically, to table the motion that's on the floor until we receive the actual specifics from each contractor and how they bid it out and what the specs were on the project. Does that make sense? To move in that fashion?
We did,
So it leaves it
I can't.
open to be able to revisit.
so please,
If I
Brian.
may. So when, in a tabling motion, the important aspect of a tabling motion is that you set some time frame to return the issue to the floor. And so in this case, I'm not sure if we, just making it, setting it to a general period in the future when some information is collected may be acceptable. It may be better to set it at a specific time to bring it back at you know, a meeting from now or 2 meetings from now where we can set a specific date. And at that point, if the information is not back, you could once again move the table to another specific date. But it's important in a tabling motion to make sure that we track it and require it come back at a specific period.
So then just amend it to the next committee of the whole meeting. Would that be acceptable?
It
To
would.
receive that information so the entire council can review the specs on the alternate, on the original base bid, on the alternate, where the bid tabulations came from. And I'm sure that they can provide that, Matt. Is that okay?
If I'm understanding you correctly, Counselor Paulson, you're looking for an explanation from the contractor about why the difference in prices? Is that really what you're looking for? On the
and
base
just-
bid and the alternate?
I mean, it's right here in your tabulation. I see the tabulation, but I don't see the overall specs, and maybe we received those, Matt. That was probably last
While ago.
summer.
Yep.
I'm not positive. I mean, I could go back and look. But in order to feel comfortable what the expansion is and what they're doing and how much the square footage is, and is it historical? Is that part of the reason that the price per square footage is much higher than normal construction costs? I guess I'd like to see that, and that would be my motion, not to put a damper on any of this, but just so that we can review what it is that we're in fact approving.
Okay.
So I don't know if Pam,
So the motion would be to table the motion that's on the floor and move it to a defined
the next committee of the
day,
whole meeting.
which was the next committee of the whole meeting, which would be Tuesday, January 4th, 2022. So that would be your tabling motion?
Along with the information requested from the bid process and basically a breakdown, the schematics, the basic overall plan. And then if we could also just have, I hate to make this, but if we're going to do this, also all the information from the insurance company on what's covered. Thank you. And that's my motion.
Okay, did you get that, Pam? So there's a motion to table on the floor. Is there support for that tabling motion? Is there support for the tabling motion? Is there support for the tabling motion?
Support.
Support by Counselor Beyondich. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Roll call, please, Pam.
Baraboo?
No,
Friedlieb?
No.
Paulson?
Yes.
Beyondich? Johnson?
No.
Aaron's-Ellie? Cuffey?
No. A motion fails 5-2. So we'll go back to the original motion that's on the floor to award the contract to Johnson Wilson Construction, both the base bid and the alternate bid in the amount of $690,000. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Baraboo.
just one point. The reason I voted no on that, if we sling that over into the next year, the cost of lumber and all that materials is going to sky high, and I don't think it's going to come down that much in whatever we need to finish with materials and stuff. So you got a price now. I don't want to see it go up another $20,000 or so for materials. So I don't want to see us, because we'll have to vote again on the current package that we already have in place. So that's my rationale on saying no to this.
Okay, there's a motion once again on the floor to approve, motion and support to approve the base bid and the alternate bid in the amount of $690,000 for the police garage repair to Johnson Wilson Construction. Is there any further discussion? Hearing, Counselor Friedlieb.
Like, the specifics of the project is what I'm kind of, like, is this gonna just be a slab-on grade, 20 by 30 addition onto this? Or is it gonna be footings? I mean, I just can't conceive of 600 square feet costing $200,000. That's just blowing my mind. Like, I don't get it. Like, we don't need that space, although, like, we did get statistics on how much gas we're using, so I guess there has to be some consideration of that, like, when will we break even on the cost of gas and oil and wear and tear on the vehicles for the investment we're making, which to me seems excessive for the amount of space we're getting. So I can't do the math that quick on my phone right now, but that's what it's just kind of blowing my mind. Like, I can't even imagine 600 square feet of space for two vehicles to cost that much money unless we're gonna recoup that cost in savings on the wear and tear on these vehicles that we heard is significant and excessive. And I don't know how long that's gonna take, but it's gonna have to be quick for me to be in favor of this. But in any event, we're at a point where we have to make that vote, and the lowest bid has been indicated, but it's not that low. Thank you.
Okay, so, Counselor Beyondich.
You. And I think that's what the previous tabling motion was about, was to get more information so we could understand exactly what all that was. Thank you.
And I would respond by saying, if I may,
Yeah, please.
that my concern was the prices could go up. I mean, we could be spending 800,000. I don't know, we really don't know. Or is it coming down now? Is lumber getting cheaper? I have no idea. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm just troubled by the costs that we incur for space we do need, but that's not a whole lot of space for a whole lot of money. Thank you.
No, thank you, and I concur. I think both bids are way too high, but that's my perspective as well. I read through these specifications quite a bit. We lay out the specs, and each bidder followed those specifications that we laid out for them. This is the bid they did to meet the specifications that we required. So we have the option to not accept either one of these bids, but there's a motion on the floor. Once again, I'll repeat it. A motion on the floor to award the base bid and the alternate bid for the police garage to Johnson Wilson Construction in the amount of $690,000. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
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 Friedlieb,
No.
Paulson,
No.
Yondich, Johnson,
Yes.
Zelli. Duffy,
No. Motion,
Caribou.
I'm sorry, a motion fails.
What did he say? I didn't catch
Said yes. Motion fails 4-3.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, move on to item 3, and thank you for your patience. Item 3 on the agenda is it Jovan or Jovan? Yeah, is he behind you? No. Okay, well, Jovan is not present, so we have with us Raina Monson with Pantheon Computer System regarding the contract with the city. Welcome to the City Council Chambers. Welcome East Minnesota. And yes.
I'd be happy to speak to that. If you look at both your agreement and your invoices, that's because they're treated very, very differently. Roger has the we, on the other hand, handle the Bureau of Correctional of Criminal Apprehension, does require a fairly high level of security at police department, and they are enforcing that at a higher and higher level. So we do provide monitoring, the maintenance, all of those tools that are required. And then we also are an escalation point for Roger when he needs it because he's either not available on vacation or whatever else, or he needs a little extra help. We obviously have a lot more staff and some people who specialize in different things, so we can help him on occasion at the police department. So the police department agreement, that is the relationship. Roger primarily handles the day-to-day and also functions as their LASCO, which is a required position by the BCA. Have someone internally who's helping remain compliant with the FBI. Whereas we provide the tools and the escalation to make sure that everything is in compliance with all of those. So that is the relationship as it functions. Are there any questions about that?
Counselor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you for part of that explanation. When the council, I guess, was deciding between the contract between Pantheon and Compudyne, and there was a lot of questions, and we were overlapping, and we were spending about $13,000 per month between Pantheon and Compudyne when there was kind of that merge over. Yep, during the crossover. And it was always a concern of mine that we were basically double dipping or double spending. Now, when Pantheon came forward originally and we awarded the contract to Pantheon, and I'd have to go back and listen to the meetings, but I think that was actually even before we were recording the meetings, before we got our new system in place, because I tried to go back and look. But from what I can recall, part of Pantheon's bid was that FBI component. So my question is, was Roger being contracted by Pantheon when we first started the contract?
Pantheon has never there's no formal relationship.
Okay, so when this first came to be, Rogers Online, the police department has had this contract with you for several years, is that correct?
Would you please come up? I don't think the public can hear your answer. And so for the sake of public education and up to speed, please repeat.
Sure. So, I'm not sure when the contract was settled with Pantheon, but I know I might have been here very close to the same time or even
Okay, so that,
I do remember
thank you.
that it had to do with
Right,
there was body cams
and that was during our Compudyne years, is that correct? Okay, that's what I'm trying to clarify.
that kind of did what I did.
And I'm happy with our service, I'm trying to roll this back.
His contract, they replaced Compudyne.
Total sense. Yep, okay. That makes complete sense to me, and thank you for that clarification.
For the sake of clarification,
Right,
and it took a period of time to move those servers back here. And so you were paying Compudyne for the fact that they were hosting your servers, and you were paying us for service. And that is why there was overlap there.
correct.
You were paying us to do this.
Yeah, it just took a lot longer than we wanted it to.
Yes.
So then on the agreement which is on your fees and payment schedule. It says agreement, parentheses, city, for $5,062.50. What is it that you do when I go and I look? There's somewhat of an itemization, but not an actual breakout of the money, of the dollar amount.
And that is because that's not something we provide. What you're asking is how much is being paid for
More of a breakdown. I mean, you break it down for the police department of what you're doing for the police department, and basically Roger does everything above and beyond that. So I'm just wondering, as we move forward with our new Iron Trail Motors Event Center, there's technology needs there, as well as a new public safety center. So for me, I really would like to understand and have that broken out. So I would like to understand, as we allocate those different expenses, they will eventually have to be allocated to those specific departments.
Apparently, we do not.
Awesome. So the city, the contract with this city, we provide the primary technical support for all the different things that. And there, Roger does come in. Provide the primary technical support. So when anyone at the city is having an issue with their email or us fire is that we also
Counselor Paulson?
Yeah. It helps a little, but I still would like that $5,062.50 broken out. Previously in our bill runs, we would see like maybe every other month, Sherry, when they did a data update or a data, there'd be 1 month, maybe an
Actually, Chris
alternating
can
month.
probably tell you better. They do updates quite a bit, quite regular.
Chris, unfortunately, I know you got to hobble up here, but thank you, appreciate it.
Right, and to make sure that there isn't an overlap, I think that was part of our concern in addressing who is actually doing what are we being charged for? Some of the backup, it's licensing and storage, but when we were kind of doing that transition period, we were paying an awful lot for that monthly, like $3,500 for data backup.
Roger in for his expertise to help do a lot of those projects. And we've had so many new hires, new computers, and then all of the new IT items over at the Iron Trail Motors and Vet Center that he's being pulled over there quite a bit. And it's as they start to use this stuff and have events and bring on their new people, there's so many new needs that they have.
Right, and I
Get
totally,
everybody
I understand
settled.
that, I understand that there's this need. My question is, the breakup of what our charges are. And as we are growing as a city, it's going to be important that we are able to understand the time allocation, whether it's Roger's time or whether Pantheon is setting up a new laptop for a user. Or I'm not even sure who does that at this point. So that's the clarification that I'm looking for and the justification for that $5,062.50.
Right. So the way that we do our billing, like I said, we are constantly adding tools to your network. Every time a new tool comes into being that can help protect you or can help us keep things running more smoothly so there are not tickets, we add those things and we don't change your price because our thought and our hope is that as we add these tools in, it actually reduces both our labor and Roger's labor. So that overall price is the price for us to simply take care of you. And what amount of that money goes towards labor, what amount of that money goes towards tools, what amount of that goes towards scripting, what of that goes to security measures is changing so rapidly that I don't know that I can give you a breakout on a monthly basis of that.
You wouldn't be able to allocate how much time is being spent at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center versus the city
Yes.
building versus the fire department, and then obviously the new public safety department or safety building is going to, so those are the allocations that are going to need, even for our finance director to.
Sure. I can do an average over, the last 6 months and tell you on average what percentage of time is spent among the different departments, if that would be helpful to you, yes. On a monthly basis, again, that may fluctuate wildly depending on what might be needed. For example, we spent a lot of time at MAC this month versus other things. So I guess it depends on you or financially whether you want that on a monthly basis or whether an average over time would be acceptable.
Okay, thank you. As we are discussing this contract and getting some clarification from, thank you for coming up.
Yeah, no problem.
We have some significant discussion here. I think the goal and objective is to vote to approve the contract or not. So first, Counselor, Oh, we've already.
The contract started on June 1st and is
Okay,
for 1
So
year.
we're just asking for clarification here?
My
All right,
understanding
thank you.
is that I'm here for
I
clarification.
thought there was a delay to the end of the year, and then we redo it, so that's good. No, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Counselor Freely, and then Counselor
Correct me if I'm
Johnson.
wrong, Attorney Lindsay.
We're fine. Yeah, thank you. Counselor Freely.
Mayor. So, I don't know, it sounds to me like, so there was, Rogers kind of has an exclusivity to the responsibilities of the police department, but it sounds as though there are times when he's required to expand that on behalf of Pantheon, in a sense, because you can't get here in the time necessary to get that accomplished. And so I'm wondering, is he compensated by you for the additional service he's providing?
He is not compensated by Pantheon in any way.
And should he be? I mean, from what I'm hearing, that there is things that Roger is doing that should come under the umbrella of what Pantheon should be providing to us, but because of the
Distance.
logistics of it, it's just not capable to be done. So I mean, I'm a little concerned about that. That if there's like a, what's the word? An overlap of services in some regard, because it's required by us to have that accomplished in a timely fashion. It seems to me then there should be compensation afforded to him via Pantheon, because he's providing service on behalf of the umbrella that you use over the city. I don't know, and whether that's reasonable or not, it's in my mind, what I'm hearing is, yeah, it is, because we contracted with him to oversee the services necessary for the police department, but he's also doing additional things that come under your umbrella of Pantheon. And it just seems like, I don't know that I'm comfortable with that.
Sure. I do not know the nature of the relationship between the city and Roger. I can't speak to that in any way.
Okay, Sherry has some clarification maybe, and then we'll bring Roger up there. I just want to make it clear that I know what data process is all about. I know this is an expensive process. I know there's a confusion about overlapping, but it's necessary for us to maintain the health, safety, security of our network system. So Sherry, and then we'll go to Counselor Johnson.
Okay, just question for you, Rena. How much does it cost per hour for a field service tech to come up here?
If we were to send a field tech, so our hourly rate is $250 an hour, and that would include the drive, which for us is about 5 hours, I believe. I did
Okay.
3 hours yesterday and about an hour and 45 today. So, yeah, so definitely the use of Roger is more expedient and less costly to the city for things that have to be touched physically.
And I appreciate that because I believe Roger, after visiting with him and reviewing this with Chief Mattson, there's times that Roger does not charge us to run in to help me or whatever. But it did open my eyes to the fact that Roger is mainly for the PD department. And yeah, like the other day I had a issue because we update and then my email on my phone wasn't updating because I needed a new password. So instead of getting Roger to do it, I called Pantheon and we got it fixed. But yeah, I know Roger doesn't always charge, but if he does, it's $60.
Did you want to speak to that, Roger? Yeah.
That kind of helps to see the cost savings, and same thing with Compudyne when we did overlap for a while, because Leo was here, I think. But you save a lot of money that way. And I'll just give you one illustration, 3 things that happened this week, kind of understand with Pantheon. So, like, if an issue happens at the ITMEC, they're having trouble with the sound equipment, that's not even in what they do. They don't even, that's not even, but it's connected to the network. So I have to get Pantheon to help get that connection made. I'm helping, Jim is helping, we're all connected. He lets Chris know, Chris puts in a ticket with Pantheon, Pantheon works with me, boots on the ground, to work on a system that isn't part of their contract. And I don't believe on-site work is in your contract anyways.
No, it is not.
So it kind of helps a little bit on the separation.
Thank you. Counselor Johnson.
I think this discussion for me has indicated that we need another IT person. We need a person, whether we pay Roger more to employ a part-time person or the city hires. Chris is probably underwater with everything she does. She's got computers lined up all the time because we get locked out or it's not connecting or the email. So I think that I would like to see this discussion lead to a discussion about a technical person, so Roger can keep our police department where it needs to be, and somebody else can go over to the new building and putz or go over to the fire department and make those phone calls and spend those hours fixing the stuff we need that are luxuries for us as opposed to necessities for the police department. So I just think that, I appreciate you coming up and clarifying that, because I think that's what we as a city need as we continue to grow. You know, our staff can only do so much, and we ask them to do more. We've asked all the staff at the new building to step up and do more, a little bit more at all levels, and yet we're a city in the 21st century with technology in every single building, and yet we don't have a dedicated IT person to help. We have a part-time IT person who works at the airport a little bit and does some billing and all that stuff. I'm looking at Chris. She's spread.
And when I was brought on the position of administrative assistant with the IT, I'm kind of more of a go-between with some assistance, like hands-on of a printer, copier, setting up a computer, things like that. So when they're talking about getting in the servers and doing patches and doing updates and camera system, the sound system, I'm not trained in any of that. It's way above my ability to.
And I appreciate that. And I know when we call you, when especially one of us counselors calls you, you drop everything to help get us back on so we can serve the public. So I really would like this council to seriously take a look at, and I would even make a motion that we direct staff to look at a part-time dedicated IT person for the city, and that is a motion.
For clarification, Councilor Johnson, do you mean to replace us or in addition?
No, and absolutely in addition to a person that we can count on locally that would work with you and Roger to maintain the building running properly when there's a wedding and two hockey games going on and the sound system crashes, or God forbid, something happens where they're broadcasting the hockey game during the wedding in the ballroom. I can't even imagine what that would be, but I really think the city needs to look at that as we look at staffing and personnel.
Counselor Johnson, if I may, could you withhold that just for a moment until we finish the discussion with Pantheon before we move forward with your motion?
Yes.
Thank you. Anything else, and for any more clarification on Pantheon? We already have a contract. We understand what you have to do. We're looking for a clarification. I think we've, Councilor Friedli.
So again, I think we have somebody on site locally that's capable of handling those things. It appears to me, and even those that are under the umbrella of Pantheon, and I don't know that that person's being accurately and reasonably compensated for the additional services he's being required to provide when Pantheon is an entity that's far removed from us logistically. So I don't know if it's the city that should be thinking in terms of what additional costs we may have to incur for the additional service he's providing, or if Pantheon has to kick in to provide some compensation for what he's providing to them under their umbrella of services that they provide to the city. I don't know that we need an additional person, unless Roger could tell me otherwise, or Chris could tell me otherwise. If things are being handled, but it's not being compensated accordingly, then that's the issue, really. I mean, if we have somebody on site that can handle these emergency situations or go to the ITMEC and handle whatever, and that's being done, but all under the contract for the police department, that's just not fair, in my opinion. So I don't know what needs to be done. I think it would be short of necessarily having to hire an additional person. I think we'd be better off compensating accordingly for the additional services he's providing that Pantheon can't get to because of the logistics of this situation. But that's how I see it. Whether that's accurate or not, I don't know. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think it's up to staff to do the research, make the recommendation. I think the motion that's going to be coming on the floor from Councilor Johnson is to have staff look at that. For me, whether or not additional compensation is warranted or not, we have a contract with Pantheon and a contract with Rogers Online. So to amend that contract to give them more compensation when they're doing the work already under their contract, I can't see that. I can see maybe when the next contract comes, we'll take a look at that. So I think that's for the reason for the motion that Councilor Johnson is bringing forward, to have staff do their research and see if there's additional adjustments that have to be made with respect to it, whether it's hiring additional personnel or finding something within the department and finding some duties and responsibilities and modifying the way we provide our data services. So Councilor Johnson, your motion, please.
So before I make my motion, since I have the floor, I'd like to say that I want to point out what Roger said, is that he's doing this because he's saving the city basically $1,000 a trip, if it $250 time. So if Roger stuck to his contract specifically, which I don't see him doing, but let's back up here. If Roger did exactly what he's supposed to do and nothing more, didn't go push a button because that's not in his contract, and Pantheon were to do what they're going to do, they're going to send somebody up here, which is going to be a day trip up and a day trip back for God knows how much. And that's where I'm at, is maybe having staff look at, is there an intermediate person that we pay to save us $1,000 a service charge plus, where Roger can do what he needs to do in the police department, and maybe there's some, I'm just looking at it that yes, everything's working, but it doesn't mean it's not broken. It doesn't mean that what we're doing isn't the most efficient use of everybody's time. So that's the basis of my motion, is to direct staff to look at a solution to ensure we're following the contracts we have in place. I think that might be the best wording. Because honestly, if Roger's in the middle of a body cam something and a printer goes down, I'd much rather have him doing the body cam thing instead of feeling obligated because a counselor's computer went down. I mean, that's how things happen. How do you prioritize an elected official? Sometimes we think we're more important than we really are when it comes to that stuff. So my motion is to direct city staff to look at an effective, the best way to utilize IT service contracts we have, and if additions are needed.
Did you get that motion, Pam? Okay, well, could you read back the motion of Councilor Johnson, and then we'll look for support? Okay, thank you.
As a point of clarification, to this point, unless we were coming up for a project, we have been waiving those travel fees simply as a courtesy. So as a point in fact, we have waived those up to this point, unless we were coming up for like the MEC or something, in which case it's built into the project bid.
And I think if the contract is, if there's additional work that has to be done on an emergency basis through Rogers Online, and we need something, and it's above and beyond, in your contract, there is a specific addendum in there that gives $60 an hour extra for some of the work that's being done. Is that correct?
I am not aware of that.
No, not for you.
Oh, for him.
For Roger.
Do you have an addendum?
So I'll clarify my contract. So with the police department, yes.
With the police department, so if there's work to be done beyond
that's
your contract.
For the police department. For the city, I've been billing at 95,
Right.
which is still much cheaper. But
Right.
I had a contract for a period of time while the transition was going on. So I was, and basically I was still, I think somebody requested the hours and I had given the hours out and everything. But right now, I'm just doing hourly, so I just bill all the individual hours at 95.
You're sort of billing at 95.
There's no contract,
Okay.
there, we have an established contract, I just basically have
Okay.
been
Thank you for the
doing that.
clarification, billing at $95 an hour. Thank you.
And one other clarification too, just mentioning about the ITMEC, the difficult thing with that is I'm not really available on the weekends and the evenings when those programs are being established, and there is a lot of technology there. So, just to make that clear too.
A very good point. Thank you. Pam, could you read the motion back from Councilor Johnson, please?
We don't have a second yet either.
No, but what is the motion?
Direct staff to review the current contracts and utilize the best use of the contracts with Pantheon and Rogers in line, and to review if additional services are needed.
Sure.
Okay, is there support for that? Support by Councilor Freelieb. Is there any further discussion? Here, Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you. And I'm not up to date on, we did have Compudyne previously.
Yeah, they're gone.
They no longer provide the
No.
service? Is there anybody else in our area or local that would provide service?
Well, we have a contract with Pantheon right now, and Rogers Online has the credentials to operate the police department, has all the credentials for CGIS and the NCIC and all those kind of things. There isn't a local other than him that does that.
And we are also BCA vetted.
And you're BCA
approved by
vetted too
the
as well.
FBI to do what we are doing. So
Thank you. Do we have any other city staff with IT experience or that can help out?
We do have some with IT experience, but I think that's the motion that Councilor Johnson has, to look at those things and see what's available.
Somebody that's already currently working for the city?
That could be part of that discussion, yes, as well. I think that was the general motion, so thank you. So it has been moved and supported, or there's moved and supported, right? Okay, is there any further discussion about this matter? Councilor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. So when you say that, that Pantheon is BCA vetted already, I think our we just had a discussion a couple weeks ago that you weren't.
That is not true.
We always have been.
We always have been.
So you just can't do the FBI portion of the police department?
We are fully vetted. And we have to be, because currently at the police department, we are entering into all of those machines to do all of the updates, to do the third-party updates, to do scripting, to do ongoing maintenance, to provide the tool that does the DNS filtering for web safety. So we are inside those computers all the time, and so we also have to be fully vetted.
What's the
in order to
difference
do
then
that.
between what Roger's capabilities are and what Pantheon's capabilities are with the FBI credentialing and that process?
There is no difference between our credentialing. The difference is in what we provide. So Roger is providing that hands-on technical support on a day-to-day basis to the police department, and we are providing the high-level security tools that a company of our size is capable of having to the police department to keep them BCA vetted.
And
And the city as well, yes, but specifically when speaking to the police department.
Yeah, I have that. I've been scribbling on the back.
very good, thank you.
Okay, so just correct me if I'm wrong. Did I not hear our police chief correctly last time she was here and she said that Roger was the only one vetted?
He was the last go.
They were under review at the time.
Oh, yeah, you have to reapply every couple of years, and we did just finish our application, but we're still vetted. They're just under, does that make sense? It's like,
No, it doesn't make sense.
it's like an accountant, a CPA, every 3 years or whatever, they have
So
to.
you're approved or you're still being vetted?
We are approved because I am still getting all of my people vetted. They're still providing all the services for us. Have they finished their review of our huge packet of things we had to submit to them, that we have to submit every 2 years, that is simply routine? I can't answer that. I can tell you that they are working with us just the same they always have, and I have not been told that there was any issue.
I just am asking for clarification. Did our police chief not say that they were not vetted?
That we were currently under our 2-year review process.
Does anyone have an answer for me on this?
I do. I can give you an answer. Every couple of years, or there's a time frame, I think it's every 2 years, the BCA, the FBI, they require every 2 years to be revetted and under review. And everybody who is part of this process, who's had this designation before, has to go under review every couple of years. I'll give you an example. When I was working for the sheriff's department, we didn't have this back then. So individuals were assigned responsibility to be vetted for access to the CGIS, which is the Criminal Justice Information Center, and the NCIC, National Crime Information Center, and others, and FBI files in order to get access to it, to operate the facility. And you had to be vetted, investigated, and backgrounded every couple of years. They have to be redone. And I think that's what the
We were
process is.
under review at the time.
Right, so
Yes.
under review at the time, but you continue to operate.
And the BCA is continuing to vet my people, continuing to approve my people, which cannot be done if I am not an approved vendor. So I am still a currently approved BCA vetted vendor.
I'm not trying to go into the weeds here. I'm trying to understand this.
Sure. And each time you get a new employee comes in, right, they
That
have
was
to.
a problem with Compudyne
they have
because
to
they
be
were
vetted.
having too many employees. They couldn't vet them all.
They never had any authority to vet. They had no training. None of their company could technically work on police departments based because they didn't have this certification.
So then, Roger, do you go through this vetting process as well every 2 years? And then do you get an approval? Is that how this, I'm trying to understand how this works and what our police chief meant, and I wish that would be clarified for me.
Yeah, I believe she said they were under review, which is not unusual. Matter of fact, sometimes officers
Thank you
are
for
not
clarifying for
they're not fully vetted or approved because they have to do that test every 2 years and things like that. But they still are allowed to access those things as long as the FBI doesn't come in and say that, you can't do those things. But yes, and then the other difference between my relationship with the FBI as well as with the city of Virginia, City of Virginia Police Department is I am LASSO. She used those initials. It's called Local Agency Security Officer.
Got it.
So that is an appointment to that department. I'm not, appointed that under any other police
And
department.
thank you for that. I didn't mean to go into the weeds on this. I just needed some clarification and to understand what that meant. So I appreciate that. The other question that I had, oh gosh. On page 11 of Pantheon's contract under conditions of service, it does state, by signing this agreement, City of Virginia and the City of Virginia Police Department agrees to provide, whenever possible, on-site personnel in lieu of a Pantheon Computer Systems employee traveling on-site. In the event that a Pantheon Computer Systems employee is required to travel to the City of Virginia or City of Virginia Police Department for a support, a travel fee may apply. So that actually is written within the contract, that we are to look in lieu of Pantheon, that we are to look for a support, such as Roger or such as Counselor Johnson's motion, possibly a new employee or an existing employee. So I just wanted to point that out for clarification. Thank you.
Okay. Would you please read the motion back, Pam?
Moved by Counselor Johnson, supported by Counselor Friedlieb, to direct city staff to review the current contracts and determine the use of the contracts in place with Pantheon and Rogers Online and review if additional services are needed.
Thank you. It's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Baraboo?
Maybe to clarify this a little bit for everybody here, it's very similar to what we need in professional services, like myself, when I was a pharmacist, is a continuing education program to keep yourself up to date. They don't throw you out as being a pharmacist or whatever profession, but you have a certain period of time to complete that education. Does that clarify a little bit? And I would like Roger included in this updated study that they're going to be doing, the city staff, to make sure he gets included, if he can do that work in addition to what he's doing already as an individual. Thank you.
Okay, let's vote on the motion and continue with the discussion of clarity. So the motion on the floor and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Okay, any additional discussion before I see the chief of police in there? Are you looking for some additional information from the chief?
I think, I don't know if you got to hear it, Chief Mattson, but I
Please
think
come forward, chief.
I think Roger clarified what my question was regarding the review, the vetting. I was confused on that. So I just wanted to make sure that I had an understanding of what Pantheon, what the review process is, but Councilor Baraboo explained it very, very much in my layman's terms of continuing education, which makes very much sense to me. So I don't know if you want to add on to that.
No, the vetting, they're still on the BCA website under review, so they are not on the vetted list currently, is what I was going to. I just pulled it off.
So does that mean anything to us, to the city?
To the city on your guys' end, no. The vetting is more on our side with the FBI, BCA compliance laws that we have to follow with our connections and services we run.
So does that mean that you need to utilize Roger in a higher capacity than you can Pantheon until the approval happens?
I would, yeah. I mean, when they're on the list, I guess I do not, it's dated 12/2/21, so I don't know how long, because I do not work for Minute and the BCA, how long it lasts, but when you're on the list, eventually it's going to be in compliance with the vetting. So I would stand to believe that they're on the list with the BCA. If there was a problem, the BCA would have called and contacted us.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I appreciate that. I just didn't quite get the process. Now I think I understand it. But so in between that time, when you really look for the actual approval of when, or do you still work with whomever while it's in a review form?
In a review form, like I said, I think if there was an issue with the FBI and Minnesota BCA, the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension, they would obviously let us know, and Pantheon, and we would work through our difficulties. They are on the review list, and I am sure with the COVID and staffing it's taking longer than it normally does to complete it, but I don't foresee any problems because they wouldn't be on this list if there was problems, so.
Thank you for that, Chief. Appreciate it very
welcome.
much.
And what the BCA and the FBI do is if you're not following the rules and they're renewing and vetting every couple of years, they immediately notify the agency of record that that contract is severed. They're not authorized to remove that, and that's not the case here.
No, not at all.
Very good, thank you. All right, thank you very much. So we have voted on the motion to direct staff to look at it. Is there any other questions that can be answered by Pantheon Computer if there's any information that Raina can answer for anybody? I think have we been able to get the information that we need and the clarification with respect to the services that they provide? We have been. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Really appreciate the time. Thanks for coming up.
No problem.
And anything for us?
No, I just appreciate your time and the chance to speak to it. And if you have any additional questions, please feel free to reach out and I'd be happy to answer them at any time. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it very much, and we all thank you for coming. Okay, Matt, are you here for the collaboration partnership with stormwater management? Okay, well, let's go to this first, and then we're going to take a break. But I don't want you to stay any longer, so let's look to item number 4 on the agenda, Street and Alley, discuss the potential collaboration partnership for stormwater management, and you have a letter in your packet, which is from Britt regarding this, the Northern St. Louis County Soil and Water Conservation District. They're inquiring if we're interested in participating or coordinating efforts on projects that mutually benefit the goals of this water plan in the city. If we're interested, we could appoint as citizens, volunteers, key staff, and our council members to work with the St. Louis County Water District on this matter. The concern that I have is that what's the main purpose of this? What benefit does the city get out of this collaboration? For me, it's like the MPCA saying, look, come on down, let's talk about your water quality stuff, let's talk about what's going on there, let's see if we could come up with some collaborative, some additional information. Oh, all of a sudden, we're investigating you. Oh, you're not in compliance. So, I mean, I don't know what the purpose of this is, and I'm a little skeptical, but maybe not without any justification. So, Matt, would you have any information about this that you could provide to help alleviate some of my angst?
I don't know that I can alleviate any of it.
Okay, thank you.
I have about as much information as you have. I read through all the information that they sent over. I know that there's a variety of these groups throughout the state and on the watershed districts, and they do some really good things. I don't know off the top of my head a detriment or a benefit to the city being a part of it. It might be worth, if it's something that you wanted to explore further, asking them to come here and talk to you about it. I would tend to agree with you though, Mayor, that is a possibility of something like that happening, and I too would be a little bit skeptical about it. But like I said, they do some really good things too, so I don't want to put them down in any way, but
No.
it would be a concern that I would have from the city side.
So maybe a recommendation, well, your information you provide to us and mine as well, recommendation, maybe we could take a motion if it's, the council is amenable to do so, to invite them to come over and explain to us what this partnership is all about and how this works. Councilor Johnson?
I just don't see anybody in this room having time to do another committee, to be very honest. So I guess I would just make a motion to receive and file. And if they think it's that important, they can ask to come talk to us.
Okay, Councilor Johnson makes a motion to receive and file the letter from the St. Louis County Watershed Stormwater Maintenance. So the St. Louis County Soil and Water Conservation District. Thank you, Larry. Okay, so there was a motion to receive and file. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Councilor Paulson. Further discussion? Hearing it, Councilor Bearable.
Yeah, I just have one huge concern about this. If St. Louis County gets involved in this and they start looking at the state mandates on sulfur and some of these other things in your watershed systems other than what's already happening, we've got, through RAMS, we've got some anti what they're doing at the state level, because they're making it almost impossible for cities to discharge certain pollutants and stuff because they're making their standards too low. So I think we should stay engaged with this. I don't think we should get out of it, Mayor. We can probably do it through RAMS, because they've already, throughout, there's unanimous concern about this through the organization, and we've sent numerous letters down because scientifically they're not looking at things the way they should. And this goes back again all the way to the MPCA. So I have an issue with that. I think we should stay engaged. We can do it through RAMS because that affects everybody in this whole 7-county region, and I can keep you up to date. We can introduce anything we want through RAMS to help with the lobbyists and stuff down at the state level.
Well, you as the president of RAMS and the alternate council member can figure that out for RAMS.
Yeah,
There's a
I'll
mayor's
figure it
meeting
out.
tomorrow about those variety of issues as well. The concern that I have is what says right in there, projects that mutually benefit. I can't imagine a project with St. Louis County Water that would mutually benefit us. So I would like a clarification on that, but there's a motion on the floor to receive and file.
The motion is fine as far as I'm concerned, but we can deal through RAMS, and there's all kinds of communities that are having problems with watershed and soil stuff, so we'll take care of it from that end, and if we need help from the cities, we'll send out a notification to every city that belongs to RAMS.
Okay, thank you. The motion is to receive and file. It's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, aye, aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, can we take a quick break? Matt, you have something else on the agenda to come up with? Thanks for your patience. Thanks for waiting. I appreciate it. So let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back and start with the personnel and the maybe go into closed session. Just take 5 minutes. All right, we're right back on board. We took a quick break. We'll move to item number 5 on the agenda, which is under personnel. Interviews were conducted for 2 positions that were open. One is a resolution approving the hire of a utility worker. And in your packet, you have a resolution of the recommendation of staff after interviews to, whereas the review committee approves offering the utility worker position to Mr. Leigh Haugen, and this is as a result of a recent retire. And so that's under personnel. So looking for discussion or approval or a motion.
I would make the motion for hire, but for additional comment as well.
A review, a motion by Counselor Freely. Is there support?
Support.
Review by, moved by Counselor Freely, supported by Counselor Johnson, to adopt the resolution approving the hire of the utility worker for Leigh Haugen. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Freely.
Just from talking to people, she's an exceptional employee, particularly in the capacity she's been with the recreation assistant as a lead. And so we're losing somebody that is exceptional in the position she holds, and that's going to put a burden on the city to find somebody that's equally competent and capable for that position. I know we're going to have to post for that, but I certainly wouldn't hold me back from recommending her. And that's a good thing. We have these people that are working for us. They work for several shifts. We get an indication of what kind of a work ethic they actually have, and then we have the opportunity to promote them to a position that may benefit us even further. So in any event, I think she's an excellent employee, and this is reasonable for us to think in terms of elevating her to a different position.
And we've done this before on a previous occasion, and there are current staff that are working that are over at the Ontario Motors Event Center that could step up to the plate. There are some really good candidates that work as Leigh Haugen has done over the course of time. So I think we have the opportunity to elevate somebody in that capacity and look at posting for another recreation assistant if we don't have our current list in place. So it has been moved and supported to offer the utility position to Ms. Leigh Haugen. Is there any further discussion? Councillor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. So just, I know we're going to be having a personnel committee of the whole meeting to kind of talk about structure, I believe, at the Ontario Motors Event Center. Sorry, my computer keeps trying to shut down. The question that I have is, so Ms. Leigh Haugen was originally hired as a lead recreational assistant, is that correct?
Yes.
And then, was this an internal posting then for the utility worker position?
We did do an internal posting per the ASME contract, and we had no takers, so we went external. And so we did have, and I know that Councilor Freeland, you mentioned your concern about filling. We actually did have 4 really outstanding candidates, and it's just that Leah and your next candidate here had everything and the experience, and so I'm not too hesitant that we can't find somebody to fill that.
So when you posted this internally, though, we didn't have any takers originally?
Correct.
Okay, so then it went externally, then you got applicants, and then this person came forward to apply, had the qualifications. And at what point, how long within their, the cities, when they're employed by the city, can they then post in or bid in to other positions at any time?
Well, they have to be a member of the ASME contract, or union, correct? In order
Right, and they have to
take the
finish
job
their
internally, so please
probation.
qualify.
And how
for it.
long is that?
67 shifts. 67 shifts, and
Oh, yeah.
at the time,
You tried to explain this to me before.
Lee and the other candidate did not have that, so they couldn't post internally. They had to post,
Got it.
apply externally like everybody else.
Okay, so that makes sense to me, because that was my question, and I still get a little confused on that 67 shift deal, but now I understand it. Thank you, Sherry, for that, appreciate it.
It has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion?
Is this,
Counselor Freely?
thank you, Mayor, is this exclusive to the event center then, this position?
This particular position would be working mainly at the event center, but in a need or a pinch, they'd also work in their park.
In the park? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thus the term utility. Moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Item 6, review the resolution to approve the hire of a library maintenance position. And the resolution in your packet is a recommendation from staff to hire Antonio Vizzelli as the worker at the library, maintenance worker. So
So moved.
moved by
Support.
Counselor Paulson, supported by Counselor Johnson. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries, thank you. We'll move to item 7, other items of concern. We have 2 items, that's item 7 and item 8, both to discuss property offers for parcels in the one to discuss a property offer for parcel in the public safety development area at 102 8th Street South in Virginia. And then item 8 to discuss the potential real estate offer for a required easement at 13th Street South in Virginia. Both of these discussions may be closed pursuant to Minnesota statute 113D for 13D.05 subdivision 3 subsection C subsection 3. So looking for a motion to go into closed session. Moved by Counselor Freely, is there support?
I'll support, Mayor.
Support by Counselor Baraboo. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. We are now